In this video, I'm going to show how to use the universal converter utility to convert dBase, Excel, or text files to the ChemStat format. Here in Microsoft Excel, I have a file that I'm going to import. Here is the universal converter. I'm going to select a new configuration. And I want to select a new source file. Here are the different formats that are supported. I'm going to select Microsoft Excel. One thing to note is typically if a file is open in Excel or another program, you will not be able to read it with the universal converter. So I'm going to close it out of Excel. And here I have selected the file. And you can select a tab if there are multiple tabs. You can only import one tab at a time. Now I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to configure the import map. This is where I specify how columns in the Excel file are going to be mapped to the ChemStat data. Here is my list of available columns. Now that I've read in the list of available columns, I can actually go back to Excel and reopen that file. This allows me to look at the file and make sure I'm selecting the correct column. So I can choose the sample date, the location ID, and the parameter name. Also note that you don't have to put the column name in. You can put the column letter A, B, C, D, or the column number 1, 2, 3, 4. I also want to specify how non-detects are indicated. Here is my result column, and you can see that non-detects are indicated by the presence of ND as text. So if column result contains ND, it is a non-detect. Now I go to the concentrations tab. My concentrations are in result, and my detection limit is also in result. Now let's go back and look at the result column. For these detected values, it is just a number. For the non-detected values, it is ND and parentheses and then the number. So we want to remove the ND and the parentheses so that we have a number. And that is where the trim comes in. So the result, if it's detected, doesn't have anything to remove. But for the detection limit, we need to remove a value. In this case, it's ND and opening parentheses on the left, and a closing parentheses on the right. Then I specify my data qualifier column and the units, and I could have separate units for detection limits and the detected value, but in this case I don't. They're both in the same column. And then finally, if there's any value that I use to ignore a certain concentration, I can put that here. And I click OK. Now I click Finish, and I'm ready to import the data. But again, the file is locked because it's in Excel, so I need to close it out of Excel. And I need to choose a destination location. And now I click the Convert button. And it has written the file to a ChemStat format. Now in ChemStat, I go to File, New Project, and ChemStat Text File. Here is where the file I have written already appears in my list of files to import. I select Next, and I choose any of these options as appropriate. One thing to note is that when you import data this way, there is no way to indicate which wells are up gradient and down gradient. So at the time you import the file into ChemStat, you need to specify your well gradients. And I do that in this dialog. You typically have background wells, compliance wells, and then wells that are not used. Unused wells, such as blanks or any other monitoring well that is not included in statistics, stays in the unused column, and statistics will not apply to those wells. Now I am ready to perform my statistical analysis. One thing that is very important to remember is that when you use the universal converter, it will convert all of your data to consistent units, and those units will be parts per billion. It is very important to have consistent units across a parameter because when you're doing the statistics, the units need to be consistent. It is converted to parts per billion because you want all of your values to be greater than 1. If you're going to do a log transformation and you have values between 0 and 1, that transformed value will be negative, and that will cause problems with your statistics. That is why everything is converted to parts per billion, to make sure that your chemical measurements are above 1. Only in rare situations would it be below 1 in parts per billion. Of course, this doesn't apply to chemical parameters such as pH. This video showed how to import data from an Excel file, but the principles are very much the same if you're using a text file, a dBase file, or Microsoft Access, or any of the other supported file formats.